Hello, welcome to the UGC EPG Pathshala program in Linguistics. I am Professor Anvita Appi. Module 10 Field Methods. We are concerned in this module about how to write a grammatical sketch. Well, we started with the saying that the whole idea of field methods course is to apprise you of the techniques and the methodology to elicit data so that you can produce a dictionary and can produce a grammatical sketch. So to do the grammatical sketch, we have to follow certain instructions and keep few things in mind. Module 10 of Language Families and Field Methods is concerned with how to write a grammatical sketch. So in this module, we are going to achieve our basic objective of writing a grammatical sketch of the language which has not been described before or undescribed. The grammatical sketches are written on the basis of several parameters, but to begin with, I would first suggest that we will follow a particular questionnaire, and we'll also talk about what kind of questionnaire to follow. We'll also talk about how to do interlinear glossing of the sentences that you elicit, and how this will lead to various contents of our grammatical sketch, as well as ultimately we are going to discuss the question of ethics, which is very important. So in this module, which is the last module of this week, we are going to discuss the basic realms that will serve as a tool to achieve our goal of writing grammatical sketch. The first thing first is, I believe that in the beginning you have to take recourse to some kind of a questionnaire. Depending upon which part of the grammar that you are working on, you have to devise some sentences, write them preferably in the target language, if you have learned by now some of it, if not in the contact language, and try to see whether the objective is attained by that. Just to give you an example, for example, if you're working on Western Indo-Aryan languages and you know the languages have ergativity, a split ergativity in this particular region, you can take a past tense sentence, any past tense sentence with intransitive verb, and now change that sentence into again a past tense but with a transitive verb of it, and see whether the subject is marked with an ergative marking or not. Similarly, depending upon what area you are working on, you have to make your questionnaire accordingly. So when you are making a questionnaire on ergativity, it will be very different than the questionnaire you are making on word order, freedom of word ordering, whether the orders can be moved from one place to another. You can jumble up the words in a sentence and see whether it works, if it's acceptable to the consultant. If it is acceptable to the consultant, you must always ask why it is acceptable and what is the new meaning that is being connoted to this movable element. So depending upon the nature of the objective, one can write sentences in the contact language so that the consultant can translate them. So this is the first thing. But some guidelines I must give you, which must be followed before you begin the questionnaire method. One is this questionnaire should be very simple and easy to understand as far as the language is concerned. The contact language should be used in such a way that it is very comprehensible to the consultant. All kinds of ambiguities, whether it is lexical ambiguity or it is a syntactic ambiguity, should be avoided. 2. It is always good to have a questionnaire made in contact language than in English. Since we study linguistics in English and questionnaires are given in English, don't follow the English questionnaire in the field, because the moment you use the English questionnaire, the consultant gets very disappointed and also disheartened. So try to first translate your questions into contact languages. The other argument is that every questionnaire that you prepare, if you can get them printed, it should be numbered. So one questionnaire should be filled by one informant, and each questionnaire should be numbered, because ultimately you may have thousands of questionnaires filled in, and it will be when you make a metadata, it will be easy to sift out the appropriate questionnaire that you want. It should not be very long and boring, as I said earlier, that no interview should last for more than 2 years. But when you elicit data from a prepared questionnaire, you should be able to finish it in a much shorter time, uh, because if you have a very long questionnaire, not only you get bored, the consultant also get bored, and he may not give you the right kind of answers. Or sometimes he's very condescending and may say yes, 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 this is also true and that is also true. The questions that you make in the questionnaire should have the paraphrasable quality, and this I have been emphasizing again and again because this is very important to write the grammar, so that you know that when you, for example, working with the negation or working with word order, we should be able to move the elements here and there in the left of the verb or the first of the verb to see whether it is acceptable, and if it is acceptable, what are the semantic connotations of the changed word order sentence means has to be elicited. After eliciting a sentence in the IPA, leave a blank for your morpheme to morpheme or interlinear gloss, morpheme to morpheme translation. Or initially, you'll be only translating word to word. So you do translate word to word and leave a space after word to word translation for later on to be filled in by interlinear gloss, as we call it. And we have already given in we have module number 10 how the interlinear gloss is used, marked, and where you can download the guidelines of interlinear gloss, which is available on the Leipzig. They are known as Leipzig. Interlinear glosses are best followed in the Leipzig glossing rules. So Leipzig glossing rules are available on the Max Planck Institute of Evolutionary Anthropology Leipzig website. You can download it free and then you can use it the way it is said. But in our module, which is write-up given to you, we have also discussed the relevant portions. There's one forewarning I would give you, that don't try to give the printed or the written questionnaire to the consultant in advance. It is always good to sit with him and or her and elicit the data by and by. And each questionnaire should have the same template. Remember, I said that the first template should be about the consultant, the information about the consultant, and then the questionnaire should start. And depending upon what you are eliciting, you can make several questionnaires for several parts of the grammar, or you can make one questionnaire for the entire grammatical sketch. You can do that also depending upon the time availability as well as the other facilities that you have. While making a questionnaire, keep a little space to write about the extra features, because on the right hand side or on the left hand side, you may like to jot down some of the environmental or cultural aspects of the language, which may come handy in analyzing the sentences later. Also keep the space enough for place, the date that the interview is taken, and also the enough space for making grammatical notes. Now coming to the interlinear glossing, as I said, you have to download this from the website, but always use the IPA fonts for the first line. Second line, you can use the English translation or Roman script for word-to-word translation. But when you come to the morphemic analysis, morphemic translation, then you have to segregate the morphemes by hyphen or by the other symbols that we have discussed in interlinear glossing. So for example, that morpheme to morpheme glossing, if I were to discuss this sentence number 2 given on your slide, Naisha ne khilone kharide. Naisha can be translated in the second line as Naisha, it's the name of a girl, but ne is an ergative marking because it's a past tense of a transitive verb. So ergative marking is Naisha ne, it's an ergative marking. Khilone is segregated as khilon plus a is third masculine plural. So you should write toys hyphen third masculine plural, and kharide also, because there's an agreement phenomena here. It's a sample of Hindi. We have buy hyphen third masculine plural. Naisha bought toys. That means if you have khilone third person masculine plural on the noun, which is the object, then the verb agrees with the object and has the similar morphemic shape. Now, clitics are symbolized by equal to sound as a sign, where as you can see the example number 3 given on the slide. Tot new. Tho is first person singular. Oath is possessive marker. New is house. My house. And this is inalienable possession because the house you live in is not considered a segregate or alienable possession, and hence there is a body class marker oath attached to it. So if you come to say explicator compound verbs, because Leipzig glossing rules do not list how to write the ECV constructions, because most of the European languages don't have this, but this is the convention that is given to you, shown to you on the slide. So look at the sentence number 4. Suhani ne sari roti khali. Now there are two verbs at the end of the sentence, khana and lena, that is kha and li. Li is in past tense, and this V2 phenomena, that is of the explicator verb, when you write the interlinear gloss, the V2 has to be written, has to be translated in capital letters. So the moment you see a capital letter in the sentence, you know there is a V2 phenomena occurring here. So Suhani ne sari roti khali, I'll repeat, Suhani is the name of a girl, so that is as it is. D is an ergative marker. Sari is all, roti is bread, kha is eat, and li is take. Point 3, third feminine singular, point past. Now the dot that we use, or the point that we use in interlinear gloss, generally depicts the the portmanteau-morphs, that is the morpheme which is multifunctional and has just small representation of phonetic shape. So the li, though it's a small word li, but li itself, the e part itself, indicating the feminine. This is a feminine word, so it is marked as verb. Then it's also singular, so one has to say singular, but it also third person, because in the person marking in Hindi is also different from first, second, and third person as past tense. In other words, the tense marking, the person marking, the number marking, and gender marking, all these 4 functions are combinatorily represented by just word e, or just a sound e. So lena, the verb to take, is inflected for gender, number, person, and tense, which has to be symbolized by the dot. So interlinear gloss actually is very, very informative, and one should take recourse to interlinear glossing according to the rules specified, because while doing this, you are also getting closer to the grammatical sketch that you have to write. You are getting closer to the grammar of the language. You also already know that this is what is happening, there is an agreement phenomena here, or there is a portmorphism, this must be an inflecting language. So you are getting to know about the typology of the language, you are getting to know about the other features of the morphological features of the languages by just interlinear glossing. I know it is very difficult to do interlinear glossing in the first go. So the first go you just do word to word translation, come back to the same sentence next time, and by and by as your information about the language improves, you will be able to interlinear gloss the already collected sentence. So interlinear gloss, after this, you have to choose what are the topics to be decided to writing a grammatical sketch. I must say there are basically we make 6 basic divisions. That means there are 6 big chapters in a grammatical sketch. They could be more or they could be less, but generally more are also seen. However, we have described the basic minimum 6 here, and the details of under each chapter, what goes or what should go, are the details are given on your module, the write-up of the module, which you must look into. Here in a very brief, I will just introduce you the various 6 divisions. The first division should be of introductory remarks. That is, what is the language family that this language belongs to? What is the language community like? What is its demographic makeup? How many members speak this language? What is the map of the region, that is where this language is spoken? You must give a map also of a particular state, particular part of the state where this language is spoken. and some material of review literature. That is, who has worked on this language earlier, what material we already have. So the introductory remarks should easily introduce the new reader about the community, about the location, the space, and also about the history of the language study that has been made. The second chapter or the second division of your grammatical sketch should be of the sound system, which is known as phonology. This chapter will give details on phonemic contrast, allophonic variation, and free variation, and the phonotactics, that is, the initial, medial, and final occurrences of each sound unit in the language of vowels, consonants. Then it should be followed by syllabic structure, where you will be discussing the length of the syllable. You should also be discussing the consonant clusters that exist or don't exist in the language. The third chapter of the grammatical sketch should be of morphology, which should be perhaps the widest, the longest one, because this will constitute the major portion of your analysis, and the details of under each category that I'm going to enumerate are given into the module number 10. Please consult that. So you will be writing on nominal morphology. You will be now writing about the pronominal system, that is pronouns that the language has, adjectives, adverbs, particles and emphasis or emphatics, and compounding and blending, and also how the verb morphology is arrived at in this language, which the verb complexes and verb morphology will indicate tense, mood, aspect, negation, all kinds of converbal forms as well as evidential markers if you have been able to find. The next chapter, which will be the fourth chapter, will be on syntax. So various types of sentences you may collect, both simple and complex. So word order, topic and focus, coordination, subordination, nominalization, relativization, negative copula, if any. For example, Dravidian languages have negative copula, adjectival clauses including relativization, and ultimately discourse phenomena are some of the topics that each grammar should throw some lights on. So you must include this in your chapterization. The the fifth chapter could be of sociolinguistics. And the sociolinguistic study involves kinship terms and politeness strategy, turn taking, domain analysis, that means where the language is used, where the language is not used. Is it an endangered language? So the use of the language will shift to maybe just the home language. And that reminds me, you also have to have a good write-up on language shift phenomena. Are the people shifting their language? For example, we saw in the case of Tai-Kadai language family that most of the Tai-Kadai languages are now shifting to Assamese. So Ahom is extinct, Nora is extinct, and other languages people are shifting to Assamese. So we have to make note of this. So language grammatical sketch is not just of phonology and morphology. It is also about the present situation of the language use. How many people are using in what context, and how many people are not using in what context. So you have to record all of these under the chapter called sociolinguistics. Here you will also be required to note all kinds of variations within a member of the community, because one should know what ascribes to such variation. Is it the gender? Is it the profession? Is it the age, or any other factor? So variations, as I said earlier, is very important. So under linguistics topic, you can also discuss variations that are available in this language. The lastly but very important, as we have seen in areal features, one has to also make note of how linguistic structures are affected by the language contact situation. I know in the preliminary stages it is very difficult to identify language contact phenomena, but there are some borrowed words or borrowings that you can certainly identify immediately that these seems to be borrowing from the current. Language contact is an important issue, as you've already seen in the module 6, and some of the areal features may crop up or may be seen in the language that you're investigating, which does, and these features may not prototypically belong to the type of language you are investigating. So sociolinguistics chapter can be rather long because you have to tackle with so many multiple issues. The last but not the least should be the chapter on sample text. And as I said in the beginning, no grammar is complete unless you record some free narration, be a short story, folk tale, or narration about history, or whatever. But the narration should be interlinearly glossed, should be given a running translation, and at the end you should also give the gist and some kind of anecdotes or noting, or some kind of notes acquired from the consultant, so that you know why such and such narration has been narrated in a way. So all these 6 broad divisions will make your grammatical sketch. And let me tell you, the 160 basic sentence list that is given to you would help you arriving at this. The only thing is that, as I said earlier, this 160 basic sentence list is only a clue. You have to build upon each sentence to get the variety. So if you get a sentence in present tense, you have to build it up in past and the future tense. And not all languages, as we saw, have the tense markings on the verb, but they show mood and aspect marking or evidential marking. So be prepared of all kinds of features represented in your new data. Now I come to the last point while eliciting data for whether it is for dictionary or for writing grammar or writing the sociolinguistic grammar or anything, is the question of ethics. How linguists should be equipped with all the ethical know-hows, knobs before going to the field. And this is very important because you are entering into a community, into a speech community which is new to you. People are not known to you, and they are also they also think that you are new to them. So there should be a mutual coordinatorship, a mutual some kind of a friendliness, so that none of the participants in this whole event are disturbed or offended or humiliated. So the first thing first is, as far as your responsibility is concerned, you should treat your subject with care and subject and respect. Respect should be shown. Don't think the person is uneducated, illiterate, so you can treat him like a dirt. You have to take into account that he is the most knowledgeable person of the language that you are trying to study. So consider him or her with care and respect. Secondly, do not harm the safety, dignity, or privacy of the subject. You have to take care of that you do not intrude into somebody's privacy without being, without getting uncomfortable, I should say. The local community practices and beliefs should be respected, whether you believe in them or not believe in them. If there's a local practice and custom, you should either take part in them. If you cannot take part, at least be a good observant and watcher. But don't show your disrespect to these events. The government help, if available, and information, if available, should be sought as and when required. Other point that I would like to make is that it is linguists' responsibilities to the community of linguists should be kept in mind. That is, you are going there as a linguist, and the linguists also have some responsibility to the community, and that should be kept in mind. And those are the responsibilities that we must give back. Must give back to the society who has taught you so much, who has given you enough data to make a dictionary, who has given you enough data to make a grammatical sketch. And in return, what you can do, you can give them a script. If the language is unwritten, you can give them a picture book, the pictures that you have taken. That will be very much cherished by the communities, especially the tribal communities. You can also make a CD of the folk songs that you have recorded and distribute the CD. You can make a Varnamala, that means a book of letters, or any kind of a primer that they can use for the kindergarten, so that they can become literate. There are innumerous ways that you can help the society by the help that you can only render, nobody else, because you are a linguist and you are the one who has studied the language in depth. The last point I would make very emphatically is that don't accept gifts. or anything from the consultant. Here you are, they've already given you the biggest gift, the big gift of language. So don't accept any other thing, neither in monetary help or any other uh, commodity help from the consultant. Now, if you consider and these guidelines very seriously, these are the guidelines to question, these are the guidelines to maintain a decorum and follow some kind of ethics while you're interviewing, eliciting data. You should be respected in the society, and this will earn you some kind of friendliness to visit the society again and again for confirmation and reconfirmation of your data. I hope that this module has helped you to write a grammatical sketch. But if you think this is too short, you should consult the module that is given to you in the written form, and that has a lot of details and some of the website addresses that you can download to work on the details. This was the course on language families and field methods, which was divided into 10 modules. The first part of the course concerned with the language families of South Asia, and each language family was identified on a map of a different country. We realized there were 8 countries in South Asia, and each country has multiplicity of languages which were identified on the respective maps. We moved on from that to the languages spoken in India, and we also came across the fact that there are 7 distinct language families that are represented in India from the mainland India and the Andaman and Nicobar. These distinct language families are genealogically distinct, typologically distinct, and we discussed the salient features of each language family of India in these modules. After discussing the salient features, we moved on to the fact that despite such multiplicity and diversity of languages, and despite the fact that the genealogical distinctiveness of each language family, we have large number of shared linguistic structures which identify India as a linguistic area. These shared linguistic features are discussed in detail, and these are drawn from all the realms of grammar, from phonology, from morphology, from syntax, from sociolinguistics and pragmatics. In other words, every realm of grammar has something to share with the languages of the distinct language families, and hence India is considered one linguistic area. In the common parlance, you can say that Indian languages, although belong to distinct families, have something Indian in them, and there is something that is we can recognize them as Indian vis-a-vis different from the non-Indian languages spoken outside the Indian belt or South Asian belt. We also saw in the same modules subsequent to those that other than the grammatical features that were shared, it actually highlights one important aspect, that perhaps linguists can write one core grammar which can pertain to the linguistic structures of all the languages. And that's a very important aspect, because in this computer generation, maybe one core grammar will help computational linguists in a big way. After studying all the languages families, the characteristic features, the shared features, we moved on to the basic and the most significant task of how to produce interactive dictionary and grammatical sketch. For this, first we described how should one approach the field, how should one approach the linguist, the consultants in the field, how should we choose the consultant, what are the do's and don'ts of the field, how should we make the questionnaire of producing a dictionary, and how should we make the questionnaire for producing syntax, in other words, grammar. And this preparation is being given into great detail, starting from what equipment you should take along, to the fact which kind of questionnaires you should make. And then we moved on to the showing you various screenshots of Toolbox and LexiPro programs which we have propagated, that you should use to prepare interactive dictionary, because the idea is to record and to disseminate information on the language that is new to all of us about the indigenous knowledge. So through your dictionary, not only the word meaning should be clear, but through your dictionary one should be able to also get to the culture and the ethnic aspects and the many other indigenous knowledge about the community that they has, because the knowledge is always stored in human language. Don't forget ever that. We moved on from dictionary to the grammar writing process, and we described that how by describing, by defining, and by identifying different questionnaire on individual topics, you can collect information on basic 6 divisions of grammar that we uh, advocate in writing, from phonology to sociolinguistics, because we have to see the language in a holistic fashion. Just the sound system or just the word formation process or syntax does not make the language. Language should be seen as a living organism